Everything that I'd studied, learned, experienced, worked for 30 years, all came together and gelled in an instant in time. So it was by far the most perfect mission that I was ever involved in.
That's General Steve Ritchie, the only Air Force pilot to become an ace in the Vietnam War, and the only American pilot in history to down 5 MiG-21s. More about that perfect mission in a bit. By 1969, Steve had already served one tour in country and was back home teaching air-to-air tactics for the Air Force. But Steve volunteered to go back to combat. He felt his skills were needed in Vietnam, where supersonic Soviet-built MiG-21s were taking a serious toll on our aircraft. The Phantom 4 was our answer to the MiG-21. It was faster, but the MiG had a tighter turning radius. The Phantom's power gave it the edge in vertical maneuvers. Steve killed his first MiG-21 on 10 May 1972. This History Channel animation shows how he took out the MiG with the second of 2 Sparrow missiles. Steve got his second MiG 3 weeks later. Then came kills 3 and 4, that most perfect mission. Steve got 2 MiG-21s on the same day, 8 July 1972. Our forces had intercepted North Vietnamese air-to-ground communications, and Steve got a dire warning about a flight of MiGs.
I got a call indicating that they had us in sight and they were cleared to fire. And that information, at best, was about 40 to 60 seconds old. And we had no visual. So that gets your attention.
2 MiGs were on Ritchie 6. He executed a hard left turn, turning 180 to find them. The first MiG flashed past him.
We passed canopy to canopy about 1,000 feet from each other, doing about 600 miles an hour each, closing at about 1,200 miles an hour. Just subsonic. I could actually see the pilot in the cockpit.
Instead of turning after the first MiG, which would have left the second one on his tail, Steve dropped down, waited for the second bandit, and when that one passed by, he turned his Phantom hard left, pulling more than 6 Gs. Steve maneuvered into position, ripple-fired 2 Sparrows, and blew the MiG apart. The action was so close and fast that Steve flew through the MiG's debris, lightly damaging the skin of his own left wing. The first MiG was now on the tail of Steve's Dash 4, so he maneuvered his Phantom behind the MiG, which gave up the chase and dove. Steve stayed on him, launched a Sparrow, and took him out. He had killed 2 bandits in less than a minute and a half. Steve's 5th MiG-21 kill was in the skies near Hanoi on 28 August 1972, when his flight encountered a pair of MiGs heading back to base. The MiGs were 5,000 to 8,000 feet above the Phantoms. From 4 miles out, Steve fired his first 2 Sparrows, trying to get the MiGs to maneuver, which would slow them down. That didn't work. Missiles 3 and 4 were a different story.
I'm now supersonic, doing about 1.2 Mach. They're still subsonic. And I got a radar lock on, fired 2 missiles. The first one appeared to go by on the right side of the MiG, and he broke left, which solved the problem for the 4th missile.
With that kill, Steve became the Air Force's first and only pilot ace of the Vietnam War. He remains the country's last pilot ace.